Did that piss you guys off as kids when you found out that your favorite male cartoon characters were actually women? I was always like, they freaking betrayed me, dude.
Yeah, that and when I found out Samus was a girl.
I was just gonna say the same thing, dude.
Hello and welcome to Grass Touchers, the show where the three of us guys with plenty of things better to do talk about video games and how much we like them. I am Jake.
I'm Jared.
And I'm Greg.
All right, let's get into it. Fellas, what have we been playing lately, Jared?
I've been playing Counter-Strike against my better judgment.
Just can't quit it.
I can't quit it. And you know what's crazy? Actually, I had an experience lined up that I was going to tell you guys about, something that I was like immediately obsessed with right before I got sick last week. It's a game called Cosmoteer, and it made me think of you, Jake, specifically because I know you're a big you used to play Faster Than Light a lot. This game is it was like immediate crack, dude. It's like a spaceship building, like...
It's on Steam?
It is on Steam. But it is actually awesome. It's a lot of fun. It's the single-player experience. Not that there's much of a multiplayer experience, but the experience is not... There's not a really addictive kind of end goal that keeps you hooked in unless you really love building ships. And for that it's extremely worthwhile. But I played quite a bit of that last week. And then
so I'm looking at the Steam page. It looks like RimWorld in space, dude.
Kind of. There's not as much like.
And that's not a bad thing necessarily. I was just pointing out like it looks similar.
Yeah, I mean RimWorld is like a game. I have like thousands of hours in that game, but. So I can see where you draw the connection, but there's less micromanagement of like personnel, and it's more just like a really robust ship creation tool. It's a lot of fun.
Well, that's great, dude. And there's a demo here that's free, so if nothing else, I'll start there. That's freaking cool. Thanks for bringing a fresh one.
Check it out, man. Oh, that's it. That's
anything else?
Okay. I mean, I haven't played a ton. I got sick last week, and I'm sorry. I was like, "Hey guys, let's do a short miniature pod," and then I got sick, and I was like, "So you guys are gonna do that, right?" But I'm sorry about that, guys.
Which we did, and it was fun.
And I'm sorry that
totally
I
fun.
wasn't, but I'm back now. Stone Cold Steve Austin glass break. Dun, 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 dun. If you wanna hear Jared do the podcast. Give me a hell yeah! That's it.
I would go look up some of those sound effects online, but I don't want to get a copyright strike or whatever. So
yeah, that would be fun.
I appreciate your rendition of it. That's a lot cheaper for the pod. How about you, Dag?
Well, I like Jared. I have not played a ton of games in the last week. I had my graduation from grad school on Saturday, which was cool.
I know we already talked about it, but yeah,
sound effect of a bunch of people clapping. I love Kanye. But yeah, so
pomp and circumcision.
Oh wow.
I was going to say pomp and circumdag.
That I would normally say that we need to cut that, but that one absolutely has to stay.
That's what the Moyle said at the bris.
So
get it?
So I ended up like smoking a brisket with my dad, which was cool, and doing all that. I didn't play a lot of games last week, but earlier this week I finally got Emulation set up on my Steam Deck. So I was able to get a few things working with that and get a few games downloaded for my wife, which she appreciated. So we've been mostly doing that. Looking to hop back into Baldur's Gate 3 soon, now that we have the winter break upon us, which will be cool.
Oh, yeah.
and I imagine I'll be doing a lot more gaming soon. Although I'm visiting North Carolina for a week, and I'll be hanging out with my old pal Jake for a few days.
Yes. So
I can't
stoked.
I can't imagine there will be any video games played during that time. You know, that would be.
Oh no, certainly not. How could we possibly?
Yeah, how could we ignore our wives for 48 hours straight? But
I just want to say, last time you were here, I literally had 2 PCs set up in my bonus room, and we literally played Siege together. And
it was bad.
and we didn't last very long, but it was pretty sweet. It was pretty fun.
That was great. So, I'm mostly gaming wise right now, kind of looking into getting more into the emulation realm. And there is a Elden Ring DLC, which is supposedly going to drop, so the internet says, at the end of February, although that's mostly hearsay. So
I was going to say, is that like a leak of some kind?
Yeah, and so at some point soon, I'm going to be finishing my 100% playthrough of Elden Ring in preparation for that, hoping that actually drops. Although FromSoft has been... So, like, FromSoft has this, like, tradition of the Game Awards, which happened, like, I guess a week ago. FromSoft has, in the past, dropped big trailers or announcements for DLC or new games at the Game Awards. And they were, like, suspiciously silent this year. And so people are kind of speculating that means that maybe they're not as ready as people thought to reveal what, the next DLC or whatever. So, we'll see.
Sure.
So yeah, mostly emulation stuff and kind of getting into that with my wife, which is kind of a cool adventure. But what about you, Jake?
Oh, I had this trip last weekend anyway, since we last recorded it, and I tell you, the Steam Deck absolutely crushing it over here. I felt like a kid again, like bringing my Game Boy on a family road trip or something.
Oh yeah.
Except it was me slapping kids around and trying to get the family from one place to another. So in between, and we've talked about this before, right? Like squeezing video games into spaces they don't normally belong. In between, flights or on the flight or in the car, I was able to boot up the Steam Deck. I'm still on Mass Effect 2. When it comes to the Steam Deck, I'm getting to the most fun part where you have lots and lots of resources. It takes time to gather those, but I've been doing that just kind of off and on throughout the game. So I'm getting to a point where the loyalty missions are almost all done. I think I have one left, and kind of make the final push to the end of that game, which is really great. And then I'll be able to boot up number 3 in the trilogy. I did have one experience where... So EA, I've mentioned this before, it makes you sign in on the Steam Deck before you actually boot up the game. Not only do you launch Mass Effect from Steam, but it really does this authentication piece with EA. That's the kind of main thing that lets you play the game. And it seems like it timed out after a certain amount of time. My trick before was log in through the EA thing, let it run its authentication, and then put the Steam Deck to sleep. Just tap the power button or go to the menu and hit sleep. And then it'll stay authenticated for however long. Well, at some point, I was on the plane, and I didn't pay for the Wi-Fi. We fly Southwest, and I didn't really need to do that. And so I booted up Steam Deck, and I played for a little over an hour, and then at a certain point, it was in 1 hour there was a little thing at the bottom right that said, in 1 hour, we're going to have to restart because you're not authenticated to EA anymore. And I was like, no way, that's not right. Man, maybe it'll just let me through. So fast forward an hour, and it totally did. And it literally just, boots you out of the game and takes you back to the Steam library. And luckily there wasn't much longer on the flight. It's not a big deal. I'm a big boy. I just booted up a different game. But that was kind of lame.
You cried about it though, right?
And then I cried about it, and I beat the seat in front of me,
you
which
hit
was
yourself?
my wife's seat, and she was like, "You do this every time." So then I played Into the Breach instead, which is much easier to pick up and put down. That game rocks so hard, dude. To the listeners, if you haven't played Into the Breach or FTL, which is their original sort of come out favorite, their main sort of masterpiece that they came out on the scene with, check it out. It is a slow paced game. Into the Breach, I mean. Really, FTL is too, because you can pause whenever you want. But it is a turn based strategy game, not unlike Advance Wars and that kind of stuff. Fire Emblem, right? That kind of thing. You get these 3 units, and it's a roguelike where as you play, you are up against like impossible odds, and you will probably lose. And when you do, you get to keep something on your next playthrough from what you were just doing. And so you progressively get better, and you earn currency, and you unlock new mechs, and those mechs can be used in these groups of 3, these teams. God, that game rules. And then I also played Atomic Heart on the Steam Deck. And let me tell you, if you're interested in playing Atomic Heart on the Steam Deck, more like Atomic Fart, dude.
Oh,
not great.
Boing.
That game is so cool if you have like a 3060 and above graphics card and you're sitting at your desktop with the lights off and you're in like your gamer cave. Like that's how you play that game. Turns out on the Steam Deck, it is labeled great on deck. But after I loaded the shaders, which I think I talked about in me and Greg's little mini episode last week, and after I got everything I thought running, it just didn't look very good. I felt like there were times where the frame rate was definitely like sub 30. And there were cinematics that were sub 30, which I was like, these are cinematics. That shouldn't be, at least I know they're rendered in game, but like, surely they would optimize it so that the setting. But I looked at the display settings because, it recognizes the Steam Deck's hardware and then it sets everything up automatically. But everything is on low. And in some of them, it's ultra low. I didn't even know it went that low. But for this game, it does.
They invented a new low.
So, yeah, cool. And it's not the resolution, right? Because I've played other games on the Steam Deck that totally rock, and the resolution isn't the problem. It was like the lighting and the textures. Certain things are really dull, despite the OLED shining in the way that it does, literally shining. That game just did not feel right. It did not feel right. Atomic Heart, gotta say, not loving it on the deck. Maybe it'll get better. But I want to love that game, but I think I've said this before. I didn't quite get into that game all the way. I got like 2.5 hours in and I just bounced off and did something else. So anyway, so that's what I've been playing and it's been pretty good. The trip went great. Oh, and I have to say, for those of you hardcore listeners that listened despite being, down to 2 fellas last week, the carry-on bag that I mentioned, I made sure that everybody had a change of clothes and some basic toiletries in one of our carry-ons, in addition to our separate carry-on that had all the electronics and chargers and stuff. It paid off because on the flight home, I was starting to feel real stupid, right? Being like an ultra-prepared dad that had this carry-on with all these clothes in it that we ended up not using. On the flight home, we had a leg from Phoenix to Chicago and then Chicago to Raleigh. And my wife and I do this thing where we take turns. So instead of doing like 2 and 2 where I take a kid and she takes a kid, one of us takes both kids and then the other one gets to just like chill and sleep or whatever. So she took the first shift where she had the boys and I was back there gaming it up. Mass Effect 2, It Breaks, Into the Breach, having a good time. We land the first flight and she goes, Jake, yeah, honey, what's up? Benson spilled orange juice all over his pants. I was like, oh no. It was like sticky, nasty airline seat. It's already Southwest, right? And I was like, this isn't good. And then she was like, didn't you bring clothes in that carry-on? I was like, I did. And so we had landed. It was a through flight, so we stayed on the same plane. We didn't have to get off. I just reached up and I unzipped the bag and grabbed the clothes, and I took him to the bathroom, and he got to use the airplane bathroom for the first time. He thought it was the coolest thing ever. So it paid off. Those of you dads and aspiring dads out there, don't be afraid to be prepared. Occasionally, it pays off, and you end up not looking like as big of a fool as you really are, and that's really great. So
Life hacks.
Hey, Deg, tell me more about this emulation business. What games are you doing? What software are you emulating through? What's it like? What's up?
Well, I have to begin with a caveat that, of course, I've paid for all of these games. I'm, of course, in no way pirating any of this software that has to be known publicly. So I decided to start emulating on the Steam Deck, which is honestly probably the reason I bought it, if I'm being honest. Hearing Jared talk about emulation kind of piqued my interest. And so I have downloaded a few Super Nintendo games. I got Super Metroid, and then I did Banjo-Kazooie for N64, and then the Game Boy Color Tetris DX, which was a request of my wife's because I asked her, I was like, I'm going to download some retro games. What's like the game from your childhood that you remember the most? And she was like, honestly, on Game Boy Color, I played the Tetris game. And so I started looking up and I was like, is it Tetris DX? And she was like, I don't know. It was just Tetris on the Game Boy Color. So I look it up and there was only one actual Game Boy Color Tetris game ever released as Tetris DX, right? So I get that, Banjo-Kazooie.
That's surprising, actually.
Yeah, and then Super Metroid. Those were the three that I started with. And man, I've just got to say, I've been shocked with the quality of the gameplay, how smooth it is. The OLED screen, because I have the OLED Steam Deck. It's unbelievable. Specifically on Super Metroid, which is, it's a colorful game in general. Like the sprites of that game are like really pretty, beautiful in general.
Right.
But oh my God, when the first time I loaded up Super Metroid on my Steam Deck, I was like, holy shit, this is gorgeous. Like, it looks so good. It runs super smooth. The controls I was shocked with on all the games. The Steam Deck, it feels like there's ways to customize it to where it feels like you're playing on the original controller. Specifically on Banjo-Kazooie because, it's an N64 game. So they have those weird little yellow C buttons on the N64 controller.
Yeah.
And
C up, down, left, right.
Yeah. And so naturally my Steam Deck mapped it to my right joystick, right? And so like C down is like right joystick down, right? So you just kind of flick it really quickly. And it just felt very natural. Like, it really felt like I was playing with my N64 controller. It was really cool. Except better because, let's be real, the N64 controller is terrible. Like, that controller.
Oh,
is
you better
like,
be careful. That's a hot take, dude. I don't know.
Like, if you, all my college friends that got drunk playing the original Smash Bros. Into the 4 a.m. territory.
It's kind of a drunk controller in itself, though, right?
It is. It totally is.
It's like the drunkest controller ever made.
Yeah.
It's like, let's make it have 3 handles to
yeah,
it looks like somebody was looking at a mannequin that they used in like the design process, but they were wasted and they had like double vision and they were like, how many hands does it have? 3? All right, sick. And they made like 3 places for your hands. Right.
Yeah, let's just go with that. But no, I've been very impressed so far with the quality. The software I used is a program called EmuDeck, which Jared knows way more than I do about emulation. I'm sure that's the common thing you use is EmuDeck. But I downloaded that, and that basically makes it so that all the games that I play, that I download, are added to my Steam library. So I can, like, from Steam, I can click on, I go to my Steam library and I can click on collections, and it goes to all my emulated games, and I can just boot them straight from Steam. So I don't have to go into the desktop version, right?
That is really sweet. I think that's the main. Now that you're saying that, I'll be more likely to give this a shot. I didn't think about it doing that because I was thinking of the pain of like navigating a Linux desktop, not only the install process, but like, do I have to go to a folder and like run a thing or mount a disk? Like, how do I actually play the game?
Yeah, me too.
That sounds like it makes it really easy.
Yeah, that was my exact thought, and so I've really enjoyed it so far. Jared, I mean, what are your thoughts on emulation on the Steam Deck?
Steam Deck is kind of like it's not the king of emulation anymore. I think the Odin 2 is kind of taken over as like the big dog. But as far as emulation goes, you really can't do much better than the Steam Deck. And yeah, the EmuDeck thing is awesome because it's just like it's for guys. It's for grass touchers, man. It's so that you don't have to. You don't have the time that you did when you were 16 watching your third, welcome to my channel. I'm going to show you how to download, whatever.
That's so real. Like that impression is not racist. It's accurate.
Yeah, and most of them are that guy. It might be the same guy. I don't know, but yeah, it's really great because it streamlines everything for you. I think I don't know if it helps you get the BIOS files for something.
You still
probably not.
You still have to download the BIOS files like separately, but
yeah,
after all that process is done, it seems to make all that stuff easier.
Yeah, and what Greg's describing basically for the listeners is it like downloads the actual emulators, and then because you kind of have to go into the backend like OS, the Linux OS, and then it just simplifies it and actually puts the emulators like as games in your Steam library, and it is super cool. And it makes me really happy that it exists because honestly, I think Greg probably would have just gone back to playing Siege after his second welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you video and just gave up on it because it's too much hassle. Or it used to be too much hassle, but that makes me happy. That's so cool. Greg actually texted me. I was sitting at a local Mexican restaurant on Saturday, and he texts me and he says, "Dude, you got to check out Toy Story for the Super NES." And I couldn't help but laugh in my. First of all, I had to laugh personally because this game is legendary to me personally. I grew up playing it on the Genesis, and to this day, it's my brother has a couple games. He's kind of a single player experience guy, and he's never been able to beat this game. I mean, they made games really hard back then.
Game.
Yeah,
like
it's
dude,
really
it's
tough. And he's never been able to beat it. Even as an adult, he's tried. I've watched him try a couple times. And it's really, really hard. But the most interesting thing about this game is the soundtrack is absolutely bonkers. It's like Little Richard, like on crack, like wild keys, and I was just showing some friends of mine like a completely unrelated incident where I was showing some friends that soundtrack just a couple weeks ago, and here's Greg, like, you got to check this game out. So that really made me happy. And Jake, you got to check out this soundtrack. It is wild, dude. Really,
dude. That battle with Buzz, where you're having the nightmare and you're like fighting him, and he's like this like glow in the dark gigantic version of himself.
You want to be around when my laser goes off?
Watch out! Watch out! My laser goes off. Dude, I used to play. Dude, that game is number one, very difficult for a child's game.
I have to pause this music while you talk. I'm going insane as we speak.
It's very reminiscent of if you guys ever played the Lion King game that came out for Genesis and SNES. It's like. And actually, there's some cool YouTube videos you guys should check out where they talk about a lot of these movie tie-in games. They intentionally made them. There's actually a lot like producers from these games will talk about this. They intentionally made them super difficult so that people would keep playing them and keep like the idea is they would keep playing them, keep buying them, right? Or they would keep the kids playing them, that game is shockingly difficult.
I think it came from because the consoles were so new and they were coming off of the arcade generation, which was make a game hard so that they'll keep giving us tokens.
Yes.
And then they kept that same idea, and it is bone crushingly hard. For a child game.
That design philosophy is so wild to me, but it makes sense when you look at the context of the arcade tokens problem, right? And you wouldn't know that unless you are like an arcade bro. I don't know about you guys, but I have extremely fond memories of going to the arcade back in the day. What is it? Game something? Game Factory? Game something?
GameWorks?
Right by the GameWorks.
GameWorks.
That's the one. That's the one. And I remember it was revolutionary because you get those little cards, and I was like, oh, you don't even have to carry tokens around with, I would have had a giant wad of tokens in my pocket, playing DDR. I'm like,
right.
Yeah. But Man, I'm so glad that you guys had this moment talking about this Toy Story crap because I probably won't be quick to emulate that game, but that's
and what got me thinking about that, and the reason I texted Jared about Toy Story was, number one, the game is bad. But number two, my dad was visiting for my graduation and stuff, and we were sharing old memories and talking about stuff, trying to avoid my mom being super awkward. And somehow Toy Story, that game, got brought up, and my dad goes, "Hey, do you remember that time that you and your brother couldn't beat the level where you control the RC car, and you're going through this like maze of like fallen toys, and you're trying to like, you're not there's like a gas meter where you're trying not to run out of gas, and you have to like keep replenishing your gas. It's like super hard. It's like
really, an isometric top down.
Yeah, top down thing where you're
D-pad.
you're driving the RC car." And my dad goes, "You remember when you couldn't beat it, and me being the old guy, I beat it for you and your brother? Do you remember that?" And I was like, "Dad, I just do remember that. Thank you for beating the level that we could not beat." So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome, dude. Oh man,
Did you guys ever get beat by an older person when you were a kid, and it rocked your whole world?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
I absolutely did. I felt like I was the king of, and this shows my hubris as a child. Any game that we got on the N64, anything my parents let me install on the PC. When I got a GameCube, I had to do that. I wanted my dad to play with me really bad because he started it. He showed me Duke Nukem on the PC one time, and he
classic.
rented a PlayStation 1 from Blockbuster and brought it home so that we could play like NASCAR or whatever game. And so I was like, "Dad, you're a gamer. You must be, right? Because you let me do this. I didn't buy the N64. You bought the N64. Play with me." And every time I would be like, "See, Dad, what I've been trying to do is this," and he'd be like, "Is there multiplayer on this thing?" I'm like, "Nice. Yeah." And he's like, "Well, I don't want to stand here and watch you. Let's play." Right. "Come on, Jake, let's play." And it was like,
I didn't know
great. Let's do
I didn't know you like to get your beat, Jake. you ever see Training Day?
No, what are you talking
like
about?
to get wet, Jake. Remember that part when he makes you smoke that cigarette that's like laced with like angel dust? Your dad just becoming Denzel, just being like, "I didn't know you like to get your ass beat, Jake." That's awesome.
I feel like I have to watch that. I know that's a classic movie I haven't seen. But yeah, that's exactly what would happen.
Dude,
I also had the balls to ask my dad, "Hey, watch me play this flight simulator." And, ladies and gentlemen, my dad is literally a pilot. And he'd be like, "Oh, that's cool, son. That's great. You figured out how to. Yeah, that's great. Here, let me show you what I do." And then he's like
awesome.
Professionally beating the level like his life depends on it because at work it does.
Right. He knows no other way.
Yeah, and there was a couple times where I would like go into the office while he was playing a flight simulator game. We had like a Planes of World War II aerial combat game, and we also had Silent Thunder, which is the A-10 simulator. Oh wow! Which is like, "Dad, you're like basically doing work at home right now." And so he would show me like, "Oh, this one's the best plane because it has blah blah." And then he would show me how to do like an Immelmann turn or like a S turn, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that you could do that." Right. Have to act like that's not anything remotely cool when my dad is literally a pilot and crushing it. Yeah, absolutely.
That's so awesome. Yeah, my grandma beat me at the Power Rangers fighting game for the Sega Genesis when I was a kid. And
that game is bad.
It is, dude. Goldar. She was Goldar, and I was probably like the Blue Ranger, and she stomped me so bad. And I remember I wasn't mad. I was really excited to just tell my brother that grandma beat me at Power Rangers. It was really funny, dude. And she beat me,
dude,
too.
You're next up. If you win, you play next.
Right,
like you have to beat grandma. Help me out.
Right. Come on, dude. You got to do this.
She's like, "Jared, is it morphin time? Really?"
I'm like, "No, grandma, please, just let me play. Just let me enjoy a game."
It's not morphin time, grandma. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, that game rocked. And
The Puny Rangers are win again.
she just becomes Rita Repulsa, just starts trolling me. I just show up to her house the next day and she's got those weird cone things on her head. She's just like, I'm like, Mom, I don't want to go grandma's today.
Yeah. Oh, come on, it's your birthday. She made your favorite cookies. We gotta go to grandma's house. No,
She's like lying. She's like lying to my mom, being like, I don't know what he's talking about. And as soon as the door closes, I just look behind me and she's already in that costume. She's like, she's got the game all fired up. And just starts destroying me.
Oh my gosh. Can we talk about Rita Repulsa's voice for a minute? Can you imagine being the person that had to do that dub? Her voice is so like throat rattling, vocal cord destroying.
Yes,
the way it's like so brutal. Me and Andrada were trying the other. I'm not gonna do it now because I'll kill
Well,
myself.
do it. No, do it.
Me and Andrada, the boys were watching Power Rangers not long ago.
Can I try it?
And I was like, how does anyone do that? You
Yeah.
know, the way is her voice is insane.
Is it?
So grating.
It's just like I thought. Is it just like the Power Rangers? Is it like that? Is it just scratchy? Do
It's
it.
very
I wanna hear you do
scratchy.
it.
It's very scratchy.
It sounds like she's yelling, like full, like she's in a vocal booth 10 feet from the mic.
What?
And her voice is so. Hang on, Rita Repulsa. 30 years of Rita Repulsa. Power Rangers official. 53 minutes and 42 seconds
What?
of this poor woman losing her vocal cords
Oh my
for our
gosh.
benefit.
I think she's since passed. Actually, to be honest with you guys.
No, she's still
That
alive.
is probably accurate.
Oh.
That this has to be painful to do that voice.
Yeah, dude.
Get out of my way, monkey face! Like, jeez,
Dang.
lady.
Whoa. Dang, dude.
So it's actually crazy. If you guys have ever watched the Dragon Ball franchise, there are several videos where Sean Schemmel, he's the guy who does the voice of Goku on Dragon Ball, where he talks about, because in that show they scream a lot, like they're like powering up or whatever, man. And Sean Schemmel actually was a French horn player. He's like went to University of Southern California and was a classically trained like brass player. And
Okay.
he incorporated
Nice.
a lot. He incorporated. There's so many interviews where he talks about this on YouTube, where he like incorporated a lot of his breathing like techniques into how he would scream in the booth, in the recording booth for all these hours, and how it basically like the only way he could not ruin his voice was to breathe correctly. And he would just have to take just massive amounts of air into his body to be able to do this, right? But there's an interview where someone asked him, like, what was your least favorite part about doing the voices for Dragon Ball Z? And he says the screaming. He says it was horrible. He said it hurt so badly when he would do it, and they would have to do it for hours. And because you watch
Dude,
one
I can't
30-minute
imagine.
episode of Dragon Ball, and they scream for 5 minutes. But he would say that like for every 5 minutes of screaming you hear, they would do an hour in the recording booth of him just screaming.
Goodness gracious.
That's
And-
wild to me. Can you imagine being that producer? He's just screamed at the top of his lungs for like 15 minutes, and you're like, I don't know. Do we have it yet? I don't think we have it yet. You know, Sean, you know what I was thinking, Sean? Could you try, just stand up a little tall and just really go for it this time? Just really.
Yeah.
They're just eating
Dude,
Five Guys.
I'm screaming.
They're just eating Five Guys in the booth. Just like, that was good, Sean. Can we actually run that one more time? He's like blue.
As they rip their cigarettes, like everyone in the recording booth like
Right.
has like their cigarettes, you know. But there's several videos where they take shots of him in the recording booth, and it's like I'm exaggerating, but you can just see like 7 bottles of water sitting there, like where he's like
Yeah, I bet.
he's like chugging water and he's like doing his screaming and stuff. But anyways, it's the voice acting thing is a whole it's a whole different thing, which we could talk about at some point. Because these
Voice acting
people,
is rad. It is a whole profession to itself.
I think voice acting is such a cool art form. I mean, these people who
Sure it is.
What I think is the coolest thing is when you see somebody and they're a voice actor and you see them talk. Like Sean Schimmel is a great example of someone who you see talk in an interview, and you can hear hints of their character, right? But they're so good at manipulating their voice to where they get that distinctive, like Goku from Dragon Ball is like, that's a very distinct, very well known voice in the Western Hemisphere, right? To those of us who grew up watching like Toonami on Cartoon Network, if you guys know what I'm talking about.
As soon as I got home and got off the bus, dude.
Yeah, but then you see them talk in an interview and they sound really nothing like their character, right? And they're able to manipulate their voice to an extent to where they have this iconic sound. And I've always thought, like, what a cool career that would be, being a voice actor for a living,
Yeah.
So
It's a tough thing to cut into and then make it your full-time gig. And if you can do it, that is like mad props, right? Huge respect for that, because there's a need for it all over the place. You look at all these, like, my wife and I always point out that it's this lady, which, if you didn't already know, it's a lady that does the voice of Ash Ketchum in like all the
Did that piss you guys off as kids when you found out that your favorite male cartoon characters were actually women? I was always like, they freaking betrayed me, dude.
Yeah, that, and when I found out Samus was a girl.
I was just gonna say the same thing, dude.
It's the same problem.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, depending on whether you're watching either the Japanese version or the English version, it's a lady either way, which I think is interesting. It's a really incredible, like you said, the ability to manipulate your voice, but also be super repeatable. Because if you go and have a lot of success on a given franchise and they go, all right, we're on season 7, you have to sound basically the same as you did, 7 years ago, and that takes incredible maintenance and like, a lot of things have to go right for you to be able to do that. It's really rad. But what I was going to say is my wife and I always point out that voice is present in tons of other kids shows. And I'm pretty sure it's the same lady, Veronica Taylor, which, good for her. Hey, get that money, but it's sort of funny to hear that same voice, but in a different, I forget then, is it Bakugan maybe or something? There's a bunch of shows for kids approximately my children's age. I'm like, hey, there's that same exact voice. Pretty wild. Well, that was a little delightful off the rails departure for us, fellas. I think we should wrap it up with a little year in review. I don't know about you, but I got an email. Not to mention when I booted up Steam, I got big fat notification, took up the whole friggin' screen, about my Steam year in review. So I'll start because I brought it up. But Steam, if you guys aren't hip to this already, is running a just like Spotify Wrapped and lots of other platforms that do something similar. Kind of give you, mid-December, they give you an idea of how you spent your time on their platform. It's funny, in the last episode that just Greg and I recorded, he half jokingly said, "Are you even a grass toucher, dude? I sure do see a lot of video games in your Steam library." And I was like, yeah, but it was over 14 years. Gosh, Mom, I don't have a problem. I can stop anytime I want. And then I look at this, I'm like, dang, maybe I do play a lot of video games. I played not a lot of different games. It says here I have 10 games that I played in 2023. Only 2 of them were new, like that I bought this year on Steam that I didn't own previously. 43 achievements over the course of 5 games, which that kind of doesn't count because Mass Effect on the Steam Deck, I was getting like all the achievements and I literally beat a whole game and like did a bunch of stuff. I think this is pretty telling though. My longest streak was 13 days. That's the just at some point I played a video game for like a half a second. For 13 days. 65% of my playtime was what game, Greg?
I'm going to guess it was Siege.
Yeah, it just really was. 132 times I booted up the old Siege machine. Followed behind that is Mass Effect with 12%. BattleBit for 10%, because we played a bit of a bit of the BattleBit. You know what I'm saying, dog?
Come on, dude. Dropping ball.
And so then I look at how I compare, and I'm above the median on all these metrics of like how many achievements I unlocked or how many games I played and what my longest streak was. And then, it tells me what games I supposedly like, and it's like, yeah, whatever, dude. Genre is tricky in video games these days. And then just lots of graphs. It's an interesting little thing to look at. Like, you think you don't play Siege, but here it is. You sure do. Over the summer in July, I played a lot, or October, because like around the time of my birthday and fall break kind of time, I play a lot. And you can see what all you got up to. So it just kind of goes over those top games. What are you guys finding? What do you see in your year in review there?
I'm seeing 40% of my time is spent playing Counter-Strike 2, 30% was spent playing RimWorld, and 6% was BattleBit. But yeah, I have to shine some light on this, because if I don't, I'm just afraid no one will. Dude, you're such a fraud. Jake is such a fraud, guys. He's not a real grass toucher. He's over here like, yeah, I'm a grass toucher. I have a full-time job. And then he beats Mass Effect in like 8 minutes with his Steam Deck. I swear. It was, I don't know how he did it, but the man was online without stopping for 8 days straight. I don't know if you took time off from work to do that, but that was very impressive.
I can't say I did. I'm just built different. You know what I'm saying? You give me a sci-fi game, different. I'll just crank right through it. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Looks like a lot of RimWorld, a lot of Counter-Strike, and some little games thrown in there. Greg has 98% Rainbow Six Siege.
Let's hear it, Dag.
Mine says 6 games played, 4 new games, 1 demo played, 41 achievements unlocked over 5 games, which is cool. I think this stat is pretty cool. 55% keyboard and mouse, 45% with controller. That 45% is 100% Elden Ring.
Right.
Rainbow Six Siege, 47% of my playtime, 69 sessions played. Let's go.
Nice.
And he never played again. And then
you
gotta get a new account.
Yeah. Elden Ring, 45% of my playtime with 61 sessions played. And then Battlefield 2042, 4% with 22 sessions played.
Did we play that?
Yeah,
I guess we did play that for a minute.
We had like a week where we played that. It was over the summer where we played that game for like a week. We played several hours every day for like a week. My longest streak was 5 days. So yeah, it's pretty cool. 41 achievements over 5 games, but I know for a fact that 32 of those achievements are Elden Ring achievements for doing the 100% playthrough. So the vast majority of that is Elden Ring, which is pretty cool. So it's I
think it's cool how it breaks off the
statistic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you got to like Jared said, you got to shed a little light on it because it's just numbers. But 13% of my playtime was on the Steam Deck. And on the Steam Deck, 91% of that was Mass Effect, where I didn't play on controller, but I effectively did right on the Steam Deck. So that's pretty sweet, man.
Well, I was gonna say, Jared, that one of the games that is not taken into account with Steam is your time on Tarkov. So,
oh my goodness, you're so right, dude.
Good point.
That is
actually a good point.
That's a great point.
All right, so we covered emulation. What's this on the notes? Maestro. What is Maestro? What's that about?
So there's a new movie that came out today on Netflix, which is called Maestro. It's been there was a limited release in American theaters a few weeks ago. And it's about the life of Leonard Bernstein, who's world famous.
Oh, I saw something about this.
Yeah, world famous conductor, composer. Those of you that are not classical music folk, he wrote. You would know him for writing West Side Story, which is one of the most famous musicals ever. But Leonard Bernstein was, for a very long time, the conductor of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and they were kind of famous in the 50s and 60s for doing the first nationally broadcast recordings of orchestras playing for the public. Anyways, Bradley Cooper, who everyone knows, and Steven Spielberg made a movie called Maestro, which is about Leonard Bernstein.
I didn't know it was a Spielberg joint. Dang,
yeah, it's super cool. So they made a movie about his personal life, about his marriage, and that whole relationship, because Bernstein was very famously like a bisexual man, and so the whole movie is about. It's actually not about his music so much as it is about the reconciliation of the fact that he was married to a woman, had children, was very happy, very emotionally committed in his marriage to this woman, but also had all these, relationships on the side, shall we say. The movie's very good. I watched it earlier before the podcast, and I told my wife, I was like, we have to watch this together. And, she's not a music person, so there's some stuff I'll have to explain, which I was like, we have to watch it with subtitles so you understand some of the music stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the things that they talk about. But it was very well made. They shoot the first, like the opening scene of the movie is in color. Because it's Bernstein when he's like old, and he's doing like an interview for a magazine, which he was very famously public in his personal life. Like he did a lot, in real life, he did a lot of interviews with people, and
right.
he was highly publicized. So the beginning of the movie is like in color, and then it immediately cuts to black and white. And the whole first, hour of the movie is all in black and white, with the idea of like it was an era of black and white film and radio and all that stuff, right?
Right. In that time, if you saw Bernstein, it was in black and white.
Yeah. So it shows him like meeting his wife, and it's all in black and white. It's very, very well made. And Bradley Cooper becomes Leonard Bernstein. Like he looks exactly like him. The prosthetic department did an amazing job. The makeup people did an amazing job. I mean, he like becomes this person. And so anyways, I thought it was really cool. I really enjoyed the movie. It was very good. Recommended to me. I mean, I've been reading about this movie for about 2 years now. Once they announced that Bradley Cooper was going to be doing a Leonard Bernstein movie, of course the music nerd in me was like, oh my God, I have to see this. And so I watched it.
Well, and you were probably also gripping your seat like, this better be good.
Yeah, there's an element.
Leonard Bernstein we're talking about.
Yeah, there's an element of that where it's like, this needs to like accurately portray this person that I've revered since I first heard him on iTunes in 2002, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was really cool, and I would challenge the both of you fellow grass touchers to watch the movie. It's on Netflix now, so it's as long as you have Netflix, it's totally free. And it's not overly long. It's like a little over 2 hours, so it's not like a crazy long movie.
Yeah.
And it eventually, like once they get to like the 60s or so in terms of time, it turns back into color, and kind of
Cool.
There's that whole thing. It's very, very good. It very much goes into his personal life, and it gets pretty dark. He had a pretty famous substance abuse issue. And so,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it kind of goes into all that, and like his relationship with his wife, and him reconciling his, let's call them extramarital affairs.
Yeah, in the orchestral
that's
circles,
literally what they are.
he was known as Big Bernstein. That's what I
Yes, Jared. Yes, we got to leave that one in. And but no, it's very good. Like it kind of shows, because I think we can all commiserate with this idea that there are these people, whether they're artists or they're, Elon Musk or whoever, these people that are just incredibly successful at what they do, right? They're just like these legendary figures that have these sides of them that make us realize like they're human too, and they do things that maybe
right. And I think
they shouldn't.
It tends to be magnified, right? The more your name is known for a thing, or like it's almost like your achievement is like inversely related to how well you can hide your problems. And so if you have a tiny problem, it becomes a big problem because you're up here and you're like under the microscope, and then like in hindsight, you find out all these things. Or maybe it wasn't that private. I don't know. I guess I need to watch the movie.
Yeah, you would like it. And so would you, Jared.
I would really enjoy it.
Yeah, you guys would both really like it. It's really cool.
Good.
It's I think the fascinating thing to me about it, watching it, is Bradley Cooper, how he just becomes this character. And after you watch the movie, you go back and you look at photos of Leonard Bernstein, and then you look at the movie, you're like, man, he looks exactly like this guy, like down to the mannerisms and all the little weird tics he had and things. Like Leonard Bernstein, for example, like famously chain smoked cigarettes, right? Like he was like even you go back to old interviews of him, and he's like chain smoking cigarettes, and you watch Bradley Cooper, and he's holding the cigarette in the same exact way that Bernstein would hold it. Like, and he's like
details,
and with his non-cigarette hand, he's doing all the same like arm motions that Bernstein. It's very well done. Wow. And Spielberg had apparently wanted to do a movie about Bernstein for a long time. When Bradley Cooper approached him and was like, and Spielberg was like, yeah, I'd love to do it. And so, anyways, it's very good. So you guys should check it out.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for sharing, man. It's not just all video games up in here. I appreciate a little multimedia presentation there.
Spielberg takes his movies seriously, man.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for us, the Grass Touchers. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for spreading the word. We've got lots of listeners from all over the country that are tuning in, and we'd be very grateful if you could follow us as an actual follower on Spotify. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That helps a lot. Keep recommending the pod to your friends, and you can also follow us on Instagram or X, whichever you prefer. At both of those platforms, we are at 3 Grass Touchers.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. In the description section of Spotify, you can leave a voice message, and we would love to hear from you, be it a recommendation for a game you'd like us to play. No matter how good, no matter how bad, we would love to hear from you. We would love to love to interact with you guys. Do we have a name for our listeners? Are they little grass touchers?
I don't think we do.
Are they little grassies?
Are they blades of grass? No, because then that implies we're touching them. We don't like that.
Whoa! It's not that kind of interaction, guys. Just leave us some, interact with us via text and via voice, and we will not be touching any one of you. That is our promise. That's actually the Grass Touchers guarantee, that you will not be touched by us physically. and we would.
My name's not.
and you know what? Heck, while we're talking about it, feel free to leave your idea for what you think we should call our listeners. Some people have some different shows have little monikers for their listeners, and we don't want to be.
Yeah, let's hear it.
We don't want to be derisive or reductive of anybody, but it needs to contain the word "lil." It needs to really, really drive in that you are beneath us. You can take that out. No, I'm kidding around. We love you guys, and thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure as always, gentlemen, and thanks for listening. Be sure to get out there and touch some grass.